Welcome back to the Real Deal Kitchen. This is twice in one day, but I wanted to follow through and share with you the results of our Plum Galette, which is essentially a rustic freeform tart. And if you watch the previous episode, if you will, I was talking a bit about working with this new flour a new flour for us to work with called, it's Frederick flour, and it's from one of the flour grain producers in upstate New York. And I've worked a lot with heirloom flours over the years, heirloom grain flours, but this particular one I hadn't worked with, and it really provided a bit of a challenge for us, and really technically for my father, who is kindly executes these projects for us. And the doughs, what was happening was the dough, although it produced a really light and wonderful finished product, working with it was near to impossible because it was so wet with the normal amount of hydration that we were adding. So now that we've had a couple experiences with it, we added much less hydration, in this case for the tart dough, water, and it was much easier to work with, right?
Yes, it was.
Much easier, much more successful, and we're going to tilt it up a little bit. I hope you can get a bit of a view of it, but it's a really beautiful plum tart, and we cannot wait to dig into it. One thing we are still curious about, it produces this little lattice-like effect, the combination of the butter and the flour together, which you can't see here, but I'll be taking some pictures and posting it on Instagram at Bone Root Herb if you want to see some more close-up pictures of that. And we can't wait to dig into that. It's been interesting for me. I was just saying to my dad, this past year I've been eating so much more fruit, and even when I was eating primarily raw foods for many years, I always leaned into the more savory, green, vegetable end of things. Raw soups and salads, of course, kale salads, who hasn't eaten a kale salad, whether you eat raw food or not at this point in time. And, well, that's a little bit of an assumption. There are plenty of people who probably haven't eaten a kale salad, but you get the drift. I'm much more of a savory eater. Things change, and in life, if nothing else, one needs to learn to be flexible. Well, you don't need to learn anything, but I think ultimately you end up being a little bit more successful and maybe a little bit less stressed out, even when you're in a stressful situation. If you can remember to be flexible, which is a practice. And as I've said, if I've said it once, I've said it several times here and on the journal that I keep on my GoFundMe page, that the real yoga in my life has begun. And not to be cliche about it, but that is the truth when we're met with stressful, challenging, traumatic events in our life. And we all meet up with them in some way or shape or form, not always a deep end of the pool spectrum, but we always meet up with challenges in life if you lived on the planet for any amount of time. And often those points are crossroads, or we need to make choices and decisions, and sometimes choosing things that we never thought we would choose. I certainly never thought I would choose to engage as much as I have with Western medicine under the circumstances that I find myself, but I have, and that's a subject for more of a journal post than here. But that's just to say that over the course of time, I've remained flexible to how my palate has changed or shifted, at least for this moment. it could change again, and most likely will, as yours probably will over time if you listen. And so, one thing that I always shared with people in my work with them, whether it be through asana practice or meditation practice or learning something new on the gyrotonic tower, or in the realm of food, when I worked with people with food, nourishment counseling, that things change over time, and that the importance is not so much what you're eating, but your attitude toward it, and your being in alignment with it. So whether it be asana or what's on your plate, what are you in alignment with, I think is the real inquiry to bring forward for yourself at different times in your life. And I would invite you, and any of you who have worked with me who are listening to this might have a chuckle, because that was always a phrase of mine. I'll invite you to consider inquiring about these things, maybe on a regular basis, rather than at a time when you're met with a distressing moment in life. So that, I guess, circles me back to the fruit. So I've been eating a lot more fruit. Blueberries for breakfast have been my summer breakfast. In the winter, it was baked apples, which I don't know if I ever really spoke about that here, but we'll be on to the baked apples soon. I'm actually starting to hunger for them. And today, for lunch, we have, could you bring forward the, I've been eating a lot of tomatoes, and this is a beautiful tomato and fig salad. And we've actually thrown in some of the plums that we didn't use in the tart. And remember that tomatoes are actually a fruit. So that is a big bowl of fruit, savory fruit salad. We have some very simply dressed with olive oil, some Himalayan salt, and we have chives in there. I'm going to sprinkle some thyme leaves in there, but any herbs that I have in the refrigerator, herbs or flowers, will tend to get thrown in there. Some parsley, usually I'll do that a la minute, meaning at the moment of eating it rather than having it on the salad, because that will last a couple of days for several of us to eat from. And I don't mind having salads like that over the course of a day or two, or even maybe into the third day. They just marinate and actually start to cook a little bit as they sit, and it becomes a wonderful topping for a nice a slice of hearty bread. Maybe soon, I'm hoping, homemade, handmade bread. But right now we're still enjoying very much the bread that we've been receiving from She-Wolf Bakery, and that's here in Brooklyn, and they do wonderful bread, many styles, very delicious. And so that's, I think, where we're at today. We also roasted up some beets, yes, or steamed beets, and then roasted them, kind of following my twice cooked beet blog on bonerooterb.com. That's an old recipe that I offered up a couple of years ago, and that's a really delicious way to eat beets. You cook them, and then you cook them again in some butter with shallots, and again, you can toss it with a bunch of herbs when it's warm. And we're not eating it warm, just room temperature, but that's not on the fruit realm, so I'm diverging quite a bit. So I will close it down from here and just remind you or invite you to consider staying flexible and sitting every once in a while and asking if you're in alignment with that which you are kind of doing on an everyday basis. Does it still resonate with you? And if it doesn't, you don't have to throw everything out, but maybe ask where you can make a little bit of a shift so that you remain present to your life. Thank you, as always, for sitting with us, and we will return again very soon. Until then, be well.